Them come true. I make them for you.
Defining performance here tonight.
And you're talking about the greatest combat sports athlete in history. NCAA champion, UFC heavyweight champion, multiple-time WWE champion, and Universal champion.
Number 16, Drew McIntyre.
I would add, soon-to-be Royal Rumble winner. But you've got McIntyre staring a hole through the WWE champion right now.
You know, McIntyre last year entered at the same spot, number 16. He lasted over 20 minutes and came close to winning the event. McIntyre now. Locked eyes with Brock Lesnar.
Out of time, so say goodbye. What is yours now is mine.
With a low blow to Lesnar. Lesnar eliminated. McIntyre eliminates Lesnar. Brock Lesnar lasted 26 minutes, 23 seconds. But he was eliminated by a low blow by Ricochet. Payback from Monday night. Wow. And then McIntyre with a Claymore. Heyman's in disbelief.
Almost to the mountaintop, you slip and fall just like a stone, rolling ever faster to this nightmare you have sown.
Wow, there's a lot of power, but
Claymore! Claymore by McIntyre! McIntyre! Drew McIntyre's going to WrestleMania!
Here is your winner, Drew
Can say is it is about damn time.
Drew McIntyre has never had an opportunity at a WWE or Universal Championship. He's going to get his chance after winning the Royal Rumble.
And there's a standing ovation at Minute Maid Park, and deservedly so. Over 40,000 fans standing in appreciation for Drew McIntyre. What an effort.
For the first time ever, Drew McIntyre wins the Royal Rumble.
Welcome to the Wrestling Recap Show. I'm Cav Manning, along with my pal, Billy Body.
Hey.
So, we had a good weekend.
Something to say. What's that?
We had a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't too bad. I mean, the wrestling was okay this weekend.
Yeah, so. I mean, not like we won any money or anything, right?
Oh, you know, I think aside from that, anyway, I think it would have been a good weekend in terms of what actually ended up happening. But obviously that side of it. See, that's the thing. It's been so secondary to me, whereas usually these pay-per-views represent an opportunity to make money, especially WrestleMania and Royal Rumble, because there's so many places that will take bets on them.
Mm-hmm.
But especially the Rumble, and this is always the opportunity to make the most money, as long as you can find out little bits here and there, or sometimes you can work it out from TV, and sometimes they just offer you up really, really weird props. I haven't spoken about it at all. I haven't put out a tweet or a Facebook message about it, about how well we did, and you know, gloating about predictions and things like. I literally haven't got round to it at all. It's been so secondary in my mind. I literally just put the stuff.
I read all my bets on my show yesterday. I said, listen,
but that's because that's you. But
sure.
Like for me, it's been all about, you know, my friends.
Yeah, you have a friend in there, of course.
Exactly. My kid is like buzzing, like he's like on fizzy drinks the whole time.
Yeah, it's like you take a little bit of the win with you as well, because it's, you know, a friend, so you kind of celebrate along.
I picked him up from school today. The first thing he said when he sit in the car, he goes, "Can you believe that Drew won yet?"
Nobody can believe that they're actually doing the right thing. That's the problem. It shouldn't be unbelievable, should it? It should be, well, of course they fucking did this correctly, but we've learned too recently, within, you know, last years, that they don't know what they're doing over there, and they fuck these things up. So,
and it's the irony of it is that a lot of people are waiting for me to sit down and work in terms of produce content in terms of predictions for Mania and talk about the Rumble and just to reevaluate what happened and then talk about the bets and stuff. I actually haven't been in the mindset to do it at all. It's just kind of been, it's almost like it's a weird thing. It's almost like I
a proud father.
Yeah, well, I'm only about 2 years older than him, but I mean, so,
you want to sit back and smoke a cigar like it was an accomplishment that you, I mean,
but
you semi-helped
though,
you know, I mean, you've been in this journey together practically, you know, with a helping hand here and there, so it's not fucking madness.
I don't think like our conversations and getting him on a few podcasts and whatever helped, but I think what helped, what it feels like is in terms of I began podcasting about the same time that I actually met Drew. Like, so I met Drew in New Orleans about a month before I met the guys from the Steel Cage. I was listening to podcasts at this time because I was doing the club promotion job in Brighton, and it has always been in the back of my mind because he's been the guy that I knew that was there, and over the years, actually, through the work I did in British wrestling, there's actually been a lot more guys go through there. I mean, the other day I was out at the taping in Manchester, and I was at the bar talking to a guy that I actually beat. Like, I was talking to James, who's Rockstar Spud, who's now Drake Maverick. And he was there, he was talking to my son, and the three of us were sitting down, talking together, having a drink. But it's not the same with all these people coming in, because I don't really feel anybody has been as fucked over and has not been put in the right spot as much as him. Like, you look at Drake Maverick, and he's like a 5'5" guy or whatever, and he's managed to get a job. For everybody else, it's been working above expectations, whereas this guy has been working below expectations in terms of he's actually being wasted for his look, and he's actually being wasted for his size, and he's actually being wasted for his talent, and it's been frustrating. And through all of these times over the years, I would have made mention throughout, be it when he was released or in the independents or when he was at NXT, or even when he's coming in this run, when he's made it back to the company. That was the whole journey. That was, let's get released, let's come back. That's what we call being a Drew. But it was always like, through conversations with him, his ambition grew even higher than just coming back, because it wasn't a case of, he never stopped and was like, I did this, so let's relax now. I never got that from him. And in turn, you sort of feel like, okay, they've dropped the ball with people, and you never feel like they can rebuild them enough to get them back. Once they drop the ball, once they give him the bad gimmick of 3MB, for him to even come back to NXT and be the champion there, you kind of feel like, Jesus Christ, that's a fucking big turnaround. Like, they really booked you so badly, and then you'd be able to come the NXT champion. And then it was like, no, actually, we can do a little bit more, or a little bit more, and a little bit more. And then it obviously reaches to this point where what I find more outstanding is the acceptance. I'm not seeing any people going, huh? Like this guy. It was kind of like, I think I said like last year when he stood next to Undertaker, it made sense. Like everybody looked at that, and you look at Roman's face in the background, and he's kind of smiling as if to say, wow, like we got something here. And sometimes the moments are better than the actual, the actual match or anything that happens. Like you have these moments that wrestling can create with Austin and Tyson and Hogan putting Liz on his shoulders and Savage giving him a little stare and Warrior Hogan at the night.
Orton on Monday by that itself was fucking unbelievable. It was better than anything there was. It was like, holy shit. And nothing barely happened,
Well, we'll talk about that as a whole because I do feel the company as a whole have hit a good groove. But yeah, in this instance, there was that thing with Taker where it was so believable at that point and then the same thing happened with Brock. It was different with the exception of Keith Lee, who created a good buzz when he came in. You knew everybody else was going out. And then Keith Lee was first, and then it was Drew. And I think we knew because I had conversations with people who obviously are associated with the company. Everybody knows that from listening to these podcasts. But it was just the fact that it was accepted by everybody else, and the pop of it was almost as big as the winning pop. I think when you get to eliminate Brock from the Royal Rumble and then you get to beat Roman when everybody wouldn't have had the information that we had, and that would have shocked a lot of people who looked at it at the start and saw the news sites, and it was like, okay, the main event of WrestleMania is Fiend versus Roman, which everybody thought it was. And then you see that not happen like that. And I have no doubt that Roman will get around to it and the journey will start now for him on SmackDown. But it's just the way it was done and mostly accepted as well. And then on a separate note as well, I will let you talk in a minute because you're more neutral, I guess. But for me as well, it's just kind of also comes down to I'm friends with a lot of people. And you're friends with who you're friends with, and some people are dicks. Like some of your friends are dicks, sure, right?
I'm usually that one in the group,
right? But they're friends.
You relate, I know.
But you meet people in circumstances like I have friends from university, and they're dicks, but they were like your group. And people
like college. My goosecock friend. I mean,
right.
Jesus Christ, yeah, there are.
Well, sometimes you're forcibly tied together through work and college and uni and all these different circumstances. Whereas, like, actually, similarly to you and people and Nick and people, we're not really forced together. Like, we kind of watch this thing and then we talk about other things and realize it connected in various ways, and we maintain our relationships from a great distance. But actually, in actuality, if we could see each other every week, we probably would prefer that to certain people that we're friends with that live more locally, right?
Sure.
It's the same. It's the same way with him, but it's not just the same way with him in terms of me and him and that's it. It's the same with him and all other people that know him in terms of everybody has shit to say about each other, right? But nobody has any shit to say about him at all. Like, even in a close environment, or I'll give you an example where a lot of people like Rockstar Spud, Drake, James, right? A lot of people like Magnus, right? Nick Aldis. But they actually have so much shit to say about each other. They don't like each other at all. And to the point where, like, Nick thinks he's a little butt kisser and he pisses him off and wants to smack him every time he's around him. So, but that is not consistent with what other people think about them, about each one. I mean, Nick has got a worse reputation for being difficult or cocky, or if you have to know him to know that that's not quite there, but he's quite standoffish in some ways. One guy I think is quite well liked, similar to Drew, is Marty Skull. But this is all around this sort of this UK scene. But in terms of the level that he's at and the amount, in terms of like how high he's got, it always has an element of jealousy and bitchiness and, oh, he did this or he did that. And people always have this resentment towards people that do better than them. Whereas actually there's a whole acceptance here where it's like, actually, I'm just happy for him. I'm just happy. And it's consistent. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy all through. It's just echoed through like all of like social media and even from like not involved in wrestling, because like there's other people that he knows that I know that are not really linked with wrestling, not involved in terms of not workers or anything, just sort of fans that are in. I don't know how to really explain who they are. So there'll be girls that like other wrestlers' girlfriends, I would say. So like I know a girl that was like going out with Bram. Right, it's not Charlotte Flair,
okay,
but another girl. But even like so just people like that. So other girls that have dated wrestlers and siblings of wrestlers and stuff, and just generally through my social media and whatnot, all I've seen is good. In private conversations, I've seen good. Like just happiness in terms of. I just think everybody felt that this was like completely and utterly deserved, and that's aside from working hard, being put in a position where you shouldn't have been fired, coming back and achieving that, and just working harder and harder and harder. I mean, this is the best story. I mean, Shawn Michaels has that story, the boyhood dream and all that stuff, but he was never like, in a position where that was in any serious jeopardy. I mean, he was a small guy that got a push at the height of the steroid scandal, where they lucked into the fact that him and Brett lucked into those positions where they needed to push the smaller guys. But this is a different story. There's no need for this. There's no need for all of a sudden, we have to make a big man because these little guys have failed. That's not the company model anymore, where they had to find somebody. It's not, he hasn't lucked in like Jinder, where they done a deal with India and decided that they needed to make a champion from India. That's not what's happened here at all. There's no deal here where all of a sudden they needed to find somebody big and Scottish. This is a guy that legit got fired, legit was very far away from coming back because they saddled him with such a shit gimmick, tore it up in the independents, added about 20 pounds of solid muscle, improved his look, improved his work, improved his talking, got noticed, came back, continued to like impress while he was here, to the point where they've now put him in the main event of WrestleMania. Like, it's the proper story. It's the actual boyhood dream. And then you're looking at a real boyhood, the boyhood part of that sentence. Well, he was 14 when he got into the business. So, I mean, this is the real story. And that also echoes the fact that if we look at WrestleMania history, we have five. Well, if Drew wins, he'll be the fifth. But we only have 4 guys ever who won their first championship at WrestleMania in the main event. So we have 4 legit coronations. Can you name them all?
4 coronations. I would say Macho Man, Warrior.
That was the first. They're the first 2, yeah.
Okay, Macho Man, Warrior. As you said, Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
Try to go through the fucking manias. Cena?
Cena's not a bad answer because he did win his first championship at WrestleMania 21, but he didn't do it in the main event. It was done that year, but another guy did it in the main event.
Benoit.
No, Batista.
Oh, Benoit though did too, right?
Yeah, but we're not
confetti.
allowed. But you're not allowed to.
He doesn't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, okay. So Drew would be the 6th, but I don't think they're going to acknowledge.
Oh, they will
the
never fucking acknowledge that shit. Meanwhile, they made the biggest scene in the world when it happened.
And I know another thing in terms of, I know how you are, and you'll actually say he's the 4th instead of the 6th because you won't recognize that big gold belt that Benoit
and Batista
true.
That's
won.
not the championship, no.
So you could say he's the 4th. He's the 4th guy in history to win his first WWE championship at WrestleMania in a full coronation. And I understand WrestleMania has always been a place where Hogan's closed out winning the championship and Roman's closed out winning the championship, but it's all for me. It's always been about the main event done properly is a brand new good guy chasing the championship. You know what? I missed out. I missed out Steve Austin, by the way.
Oh
yeah,
that's yeah. Shame on you. That's a good one of the biggest star of all time. Oops. The guy you named your son after, right?
I didn't have it on my list actually.
Jesus.
I've just gone back to my notes. Shit, that's a really bad one to miss out.
Yeah,
okay,
so did I. Though.
So Drew would be the fifth. Fifth WWE, seventh. First time champion.
Those are pretty good names when you talk about the five.
It's not just about the names. It's about the fact that
that's legendary.
It's about the fact of how little and how often they should do this and how they don't. And in terms of how it feels like a real main event. And even if you go back to little things like those wooden plaques, right? Mm-hmm. One of the top selling ones of all time is the Shawn Michaels one because of the story that they told. The match for me is absolute unwatchable garbage.
It is. You know what? People don't think so. Like they put that up there, and I'm always like, "Oh, it kills me that match. It's way too many rest spots."
They're cheap because they follow the narrative of what they're supposed to think, and in terms of like. They give a this is what social media is. It's just other people. It's just popular opinion echoed through your mouth, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll see that certain wrestlers like Ric Flair has put the Iron Man match at number one, and in some DVD that he did a few years ago. And it's like, dude, have you watched it? I know he thinks he's the 60-minute man, and he may have done it almost in character, as part of his character, but I can't watch that thing. I know we actually had to watch it once for the Monday Night Wars podcast that we were doing, and I didn't. I couldn't. Not in full. Not move by move, because it's a lot of that whole like work apart, get a headlock, kill
and
2 minutes here.
That's the one thing that like brands in my head when you even mentioned the match. That was the first thing I thought was. A fucking reverse chin lock in the middle of the fucking ring. And that's what comes to mind when I think of that fucking match. I'm like, they would slow down and fucking let's have a fucking rest. And it was a lot of that, man.
But I don't know when those wooden plaques came out. I believe that may have actually been the first time.
That was the first one, actually.
Yeah, that's why it's held such a high value. But I also know that the WrestleMania 14 Steve Austin one is absolutely untraceable. 17 is also quite hard to get, but 15.
That's what I'm looking at right now. In
17,
the one with Austin.
17 or 14.
That is 17. That's 17.
I always wanted to get 17 because that's like one of my favorite matches at WrestleMania, and that is my favorite WrestleMania as well. But
that's funny. I told the girlfriend I didn't have an Austin autograph. And then she goes, "Is this one any good?" and gives it to me.
Oh, yeah. I remember you have it, don't you?
Yeah, I got it. I sold the Shawn Michaels one. I got the Austin one.
Yeah, I think in terms of monetary value, you sold the better one. But in terms of what I'd want in my house, it would definitely be the one that you possess. But getting back to my point, I think if there were plaques for Warrior and Savage, that they would be highly sought after plaques. And we're looking at
they got a Benoit though one. They do have Benoit.
Well, I mean, the fact that we're looking at 1988 here, and then we're looking at 1990, and then we're looking at 1996, and in terms of how valuable they are, and if we had obviously Austin and Tyson available as well, that moment is aired over and over and over again. So these guys winning the championship for the first time, or somebody chasing their first championship, does have a big feel to it. Now, Daniel Bryan would have had a big feel to it too, and it did when it happened. But I mean, they only gave that 3 weeks to build, and it felt like a very, very quick storyline that they were forced into, which is true, which everybody knows that it was. But this feels like we're making a guy. We're proper making a guy. We decided to give him the Rumble, which they didn't do with Daniel Bryan. Like, we're making it now. We're telling the story from this point. It feels like a real main event. It feels like what WrestleMania main event is supposed to be, where a new face of the company will come up and take a shot at taking the championship, leading the way, drawing houses. And obviously, in order to do that, one of the things that even I've texted Drew this week and said, get a fucking t-shirt. Like, get something that because the Fiend has so many things out now as a heel. There's a different Fiend item every day. And when Edge came back the other day, there was something waiting for him on Monday already on Raw. There was a t-shirt being sold and promoted on Shop. So I think it's imperative that he has a good t-shirt, not a they sometimes go with the I say Von Dutch, but it's not Von Dutch. It's another tattoo company. Maybe it is Von Dutch. No, Affliction.
Okay, yeah, that style of writing, you mean?
Yeah, all that like Affliction, like tattoo crap that they bring out, and they bring it out because they think that we don't want to acknowledge that we're wrestling fans, but we sneakily want to show our support. I don't think that's true. I think if you're a wrestling fan at this point, you're just thinking, you know what? I'll just embrace it. I won't wear it on a date, obviously, but if I'm going to the gym or I'm going down to have breakfast at IHOP or whatever, and it's my day off, like, I can wear this. Or even more significantly, I can wear this to a wrestling show. I think they're overthinking the product that they're bringing out, and then you get really terrible merchandise like Randy Orton's had his whole career. And
other than the fucking RKO NWO shirt was probably his best one.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's really important they get behind him now with all of the stuff that you need as well, and that is a big factor behind it. But I mean, what are your thoughts in terms of being less, tied to it?
I think obviously, I talk to obviously people who watch as just fans and have zero, ties to anything. And like even people through work that watch. And it's funny, like you said, because I had called you and said, hey, let them know a bunch of people, we're congratulating, we're genuinely happy. And you said, you know what? I got fucking tons of people telling me the same too. And like he would know these people. And I said like, oh, it's the same as like what he gets on Twitter. It's all people he doesn't know, but it's nice to know, make him feel good because it's genuine that people are like good for you. Fine. Like they almost feel like when you have people that you rooting for and that you like to watch, and they do something, you do get almost a sense of pride, like that's my fucking pick. That's my guy. Because I had that feeling with Shawn Michaels. That was my, like, as soon as he put Jannetty through the window, he was my guy. And so when he accomplished something, I felt like I won something. I'm like, fucking my guy win. It's like a football team. It's your fucking guy. So a lot of people would tell me, that they were like, why the fuck aren't they doing anything with Drew? I would hear it constantly, just not even just because of the link through you, things like that, just talking about wrestling. They're like, what the fuck? And I would say the same thing. It's become senile. They don't know what the fuck they're doing over there. That's the best answer that I could give.
See, that's the thing. Like, even my mum said, to me when my mum texted me, she said, "Oh, Austin's favorite wrestler won the Royal Rumble," and it was like, well, it's because she seems to think that we post the pictures up or whatever because he's just his favorite wrestler, when in fact it's actually through actual support of him as opposed to that side of it. He is his favorite, that's correct, but at the same time he's favorite because
there's an added to it. Yeah,
there's an added to it, but I don't think she acknowledged that part. I think she just recognized that it
would be the favorite though for your son if he did not know him at all anyway, because he gets into what's going on and the big things that are going on, and as a kid you're going to gravitate toward great shit that's happening. And now,
no, I disagree actually, because I feel that although he was getting himself over recently, I think before he was being booked as a heel.
I'm saying
in a generic position.
I'm saying more now, but like because he's good guy now, so everyone. No,
I think now for people that are not in the know, who obviously people who are just casual fans or people that don't actually have any ties to him, as soon as he kicked Brock over the rope, he's a star. He's now the star of women and children and everybody, and we need to get behind him with everything that the company machine can do. Whereas before, I feel like there wasn't too much difference from a kid's eyes in terms of he was booked with Lashley and Corbin, and he was the same size as Lashley and Corbin, and booked no stronger than Lashley and Corbin in that trio at a time I would think as possibly the darker stages of this WWE run where Drew couldn't get out of a 6-man. So at that point, he's Austin's favorite because Austin knows Drew through that. And the thing is that even with that side of things, it's like, that's not his kid, that's my kid. Me and Drew are not best friends by any means. We're two guys that only really talk about wrestling. If a extreme situation arises, like I'll know about it, or like if he's injured, or if I was going through like court case last year, and then it will be discussed somewhat. But because he's also been through a divorce as well, and I believe we were divorcing at the same time. But other than that, it's mainly kept on a wrestling plate. So therefore, for my son to receive calls on birthdays and FaceTimes, or when he's done something good at school, or whatever, or whenever the mood, whenever it seems appropriate, then that is just above and beyond what anybody is really going to do. So that in itself is going to elevate him in the minds of a kid. But that's my kid. That's my kid who has had FaceTime conversations with him and happy birthdays and things of that nature for because of me. But when he kicks Brock over at the Royal Rumble, then he becomes everybody's favorite, or the potential to be overnight, because that literally kicks you into a different gear immediately.
What actually helped it too, I thought a lot, and I'm sure you'll agree with it, is the believability of his emotions, staring him down. When you hear him get in the ring, he's talking shit, and you could hear what he says, and like he's like, "Let's fucking go, Brock. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you." Like he get himself fired up, so he puts himself in the acting world of you're in it. This isn't bullshit. This is real. And so if you do believe in something like George Costanza, it's not a lie if you believe it. So him believing it himself, and with the intensity and everything, always makes things so much better. And he captured it and with what he did and staring at him. And I got nervous because he was staring at him so fucking long. I'm like, Brock's going to come back and fuck him and pull him out of the fucking ring. I'm like, oh, fuck. So that's the one thing that got me fucking nervous.
But you don't think everything about it was what made it, in terms of when he came into the ring, they didn't back down. He didn't back down from him. And then when he put him over the top rope, he carried on looking at him. And then the next night, he just said, I know I can beat you.
Yeah, it all links together. And I think they did a good job, even though, like, he puts him out, but Ricochet is the start of the cause of it. And so that saves Brock face a little bit, so it's not like he's just got his ass fucking tossed out. And it's like, oh, fuck, you got fucking thrown. So it was like, well, if he didn't do that, would it have happened? So you hope.
Well, there always needed to be an out, like, because if he just knocks Brock out clean, then he knocks Brock out clean. My out when I was on this show and I was booking it out on this show, my out was Brock was tired from eliminating the entire 24/7 division. Because remember, I had R-Truth. No matter how many guys he went through, my idea was, before you introduce Drew, you introduce R-Truth, and then all those guys follow him in, and then Brock has is gassed from eliminating 10 guys. So I gave him the gassed thing as an out.
Isn't it true you sent Drew flowers after he won this whole thing?
No, what's that mean?
I thought you did. I don't know. Just because I always fucking tease you, that's all. The other part of the whole Rumble, if we're going past everything.
Well, I mean, I have spoken to him since. That's about it. And actually, like, the cool thing is that because, like, sometimes I'll send a text out. We'll talk after certain things happen on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing he said to me is that if I do any like shit that you think is not good, then you tell me. And I was thinking at this point where it was like, okay, he's reached a certain point, and now it's going to be like, how can you tell me what's what? Look what position I'm in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's really good is that there's a realization as to loads of people have been in this position, like, because we push a different star every year, but nobody stays there except for Cena and Orton, right?
Sure.
So actually, 80% of people fail in this spot because otherwise they'd still be there year in and year out, and they wouldn't be down the card. Like, I don't even think Seth Rollins is going to be in the top 8 matches this year.
I mean,
for WrestleMania.
I don't know. I mean, they pushed Lars pretty hard. My main concern is, has anybody seen, and they need to be very, very concerned, and this is a very sensitive subject and a very important subject. They need to be cognizant of Heath Slater. Is he on suicide watch? Do they know where he is? And I assume he's in the gym working out like a fucking madman to bulk up like Jinder and Drew did.
The thing is that when you have like long-term deals, and see the difference is I think there is different kinds of people in terms of, whereas Drew
desire.
Yeah, but the thing is that he also has like the size, and like it's just like he has a lot of God-given stuff.
Sure.
Where I think you look at people being pushed, like last year, you're looking Rollins going up against Brock, and you're thinking to yourself, why? Why isn't it me? I don't think that Heath or even Jinder are looking at other people, especially Drew, who was quite clearly the most talented person in that group, and are looking at it and going, no, that should be me. I think once you're hired by that company and you're earning a certain amount of money and you're safe and you're buying houses and other properties and cars, and your family are secure, I think you're just trying to keep the job. I think any desire to be on TV or be pushed or whatever, I don't think it exists there.
Oh, that's Ryder 100%, right? Where's my paycheck?
I think it's a lot of people. I honestly feel that when Drew came in and was talking about the locker room, I think that was down to almost calling out 80% of the guys who are content, because once you have this job, like, I don't think there's necessarily any desire. I think if you're out there and you're being told that you're in the role that the club were in this Monday, where he beat them in like 5 minutes and both of them, what do you care? Your contract is $500,000 a year guaranteed for 5 years.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, some guys give a shit, obviously. It's some. Because, I mean, wasn't it that the club was going to leave? And it was like, oh, we got them to stay so they don't go to the AEW. And then it was like, all right, now that you signed.
I don't think they were going to be taking a massive pay cut, though.
No, and I laugh because aren't they the best tag team in the world? They didn't bring that shit up.
But see, I think that's part of the push. That's part of the push. Well, I think at the moment with AJ being injured, I think they're a bit of a lost cause at the moment. So they're not really sure what they're probably going to do with him. But in that regard, I think when you're in their position and you're in other people's position, and I think even with AJ Styles, yeah, he ended up turning it around and he ended up getting, good and having that feud of Cena and winning a championship and winning the championship a few times and all that. But I think if he'd come in there and he lost to Jericho his first WrestleMania, and he continued in a path where he was like a babyface Dolph Ziggler, and he never became champion, and he never got past a certain point. Why would he have cared? He never thought he was going to work there anyway. And he's finished his last 5 years in his career. He would have looked at $1 million a year or whatever, when you include merchandise sales, and he would have retired with more money than he made for the first 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is somewhat of a retirement home. And it's a weird thing to say because they do take on a lot younger people than they used to, but it is a place where you want to retire. It is a place where you want to have a 10-year run. 10-year runs now, when you think it's of Hulk Hogan only ever being there for 9 years and then coming back on and off after that. And Undertaker, I remember when Undertaker got to 10 years, it was like a big fucking DVD. It was like a big DVD. It was like a decade of destruction and all this shit. It doesn't matter anymore. Everybody's going to get there for 10 years now. It's only 2 contracts now.
Yeah, unless you're a fuck up. That's what it seems like. It's like, if you do what you're supposed to do, you should be comfortable and be there. But that's the problem about them being comfortable and not pushing themselves, I don't think. And I think a lot of times, like we see with the new guys or whatever, everyone's scared to tell Vince no, or I don't fucking like this, because they're like, I don't want to make fucking waves. I'm going to keep my fucking job, keep my paycheck. Where you'd have those guys like Austin and Shawn who would go in there and fucking shake the doors and be like, fuck, this is bullshit. I got to do this and that, I mean, if Austin didn't, yell and scream, we wouldn't have had Austin at all. The fucking guy would have been ringmaster and he would have been there for 3 fucking years. Let's get into the other thing that happened on Raw before we finish out the show, which was some of the best stuff I've seen emotion-wise in a fucking long time. Anytime Orton gets evil and he slows it way down, it's so fucking good. It was very much handcuffing Triple H and kissing Stephanie style. That's what it reminded me of. Where it was just so slow. And Edge did a fucking great job too, even with his little hand twitching a little bit, I don't know if I was disappointed that they didn't follow through with, like, quote unquote, snapping his neck, or if that was the better idea to do where he didn't, because I'm like, well, are they worried that if he does do that, that they're going to have to say, oh, how the fuck did Edge then come back? It's ridiculous. And that's the reason I think do it.
I think that it was just a case of going back to the irony in terms of doing what they used to do together in terms of concertoing people. Like they did that to Shawn Michaels, I believe, and DX. I think they did it to both of DX, and it's something they did together. Now one does it to the other. That's what it's more about.
See, I thought, you know what, it never even occurred to me that they ever did it together, because all I think of was with him and Christian doing it. So I don't even recall that they ever even did it. That's how it went out of my brain. But the evilness of the other part, I think was, I mean, he gets on the road. It's like he's having a struggle inside himself with what the fuck is wrong with me that I have to fucking be a fucking crazy person. It was really fucking good. He told a story by fucking barely doing shit. It was that fucking good. I mean, everyone knew that he's getting RKO'd right off the fucking bat when he's like, oh, let's do that. I'm like, because if they didn't have what they had the night before where he got thrown out, then I think it's more of a surprise. But Edge does a good job to where he gets RKO'd and he's holding his neck like he fucking re-injured himself and shit. And the thought of, like, the crowd went fucking silent. They were quiet when he fucking was getting on those ropes, and they're holding their mouths, and you're seeing the people like, holy fuck. It was one of those holy fuck moments, like he fucking killed somebody. Orton is so fucking talented. It's really something else. The way, I mean, he's got range. He goes, from one end to the other very easily, where beforehand they had Edge fucking crying from a heartfelt thing that he said that was probably very true. And that's why Edge fucking cried from it. Edge isn't Edge was on the show Vikings. He's not some Olivier over here. So, I mean,
the performance, I thought the performance of like both guys was good. I mean, Edge's performance was good.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think Edge's performance was true. So I don't think he was acting. When he was crying about what Orton was saying, I think that was 100% heartfelt and true. That's why I'm saying I don't think he's that good of an actor. So I think that was true. And then it goes into, okay, we have to do what we have to do. You know, we know it's coming, but I don't think he 100% knew what Orton was going to say about him first. I'm sure he said, we're going to come out there and I'm going to say some nice things, and then we're going to go into our thing. But
I'm interested in the explanation, because if the explanation's not good, otherwise it was a bit too quick. I mean, I would have at least had a few. I remember when Shawn and Triple H did this, and they got back together for a week, and then he did it to him. But here there was no reunion at all. It was like, let's get back together, and then he RKO'd him. So
Edge got to be out for a while now, right? Like, we're not going to see him for a bit.
Well, Edge is only going to do dates once so often. Sure. So he's only going to do the main pay-per-views. I imagine that means working like 4 or 5 times a year. So I don't think he's going to be getting the championship or anything. Mm-hmm. Maybe a title match, but I'm not too sure 100%. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely out for a while. So, and he'll face Orton at WrestleMania. At
Elimination Chamber is when he's going to come out to probably fuck over Orton some way for something. Orton's got to be having an opportunity to do something, and then he's going to get fucked. And that's the next time we see Edge, I'm assuming. And I assume this week coming up, Orton has to have the explanation of what he did and why he did it.
That's the thing. I mean, that's one thing that we wanted to talk about earlier when I said the product, they seem to have hit a groove right now, because the pay-per-view, you know, I wasn't going into this Royal Rumble pumped up massively for the Royal Rumble. I mean, I'd heard rumblings that, you know, that they were going to get behind Drew, but Drew didn't even know anything about it. So in terms of, you hear, I always say this in terms of, I'm friends with a few wrestlers actually, and they don't know anything. They don't know nothing about, they hear, like, they have some conversations about, we might do this, we'll get back to you or whatever, but they don't actually know anything.
It's crazy at
all. So when I got some texts from people going, "Oh, you must have made a fortune on this Royal Rumble," I was like, "Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, but nothing to do with."
It was more your education of wrestling.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't it, because we sat down and put the bets together to get down. We put them out together, right? Mm-hmm. And we sat there. It was like, "Oh, if this happens, this has got to happen." Well, if Edge is going to come back, and this is going to. Well, if Drew's not going to, if Roman's getting to. You know, if the Cain Velasquez price has moved out to him not being there, then the only guy that can eliminate him is Drew. Mm-hmm. And then if Drew, then we actually didn't commit a lot to the winner. We just committed to Drew and Roman because we knew they were going to
committed a lot to Edge. Edge rode a lot with us, yeah, and it was him tied with a ton of people. Some showed up, some did not show up.
So I mean, that's the thing. Like our props, our prop bets were very good in terms of. Just being educated wrestling fans. And then, so I got a lot of texts from people going like, "Oh, like, how much did you make?" Like straight away, it was almost like they thought this was the moment I've been waiting for in terms of, because
my ship has come in.
Yes, my friend is going to win, and he
told you 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah, 2 weeks ahead of time, and I laid it off.
What number he was, who was getting eliminated. I can only wish for such a thing.
Oh God! If only.
God!
Maybe if he knew, then. But it was like,
I wouldn't trust it if he told you 2 weeks ahead of time, because we know that they fucking changed that shit 2 minutes before.
Well, you know what, hey, man, there's probably a guy out there who was friends with Roman Reigns, who was told, "I'm winning."
Oh yeah. This poor bastard has no house anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You can't do that. And the thing is what I heard from about this Rumble as well was, first of all, as I was before I get too off track, it was a good Rumble throughout. Like there wasn't a point where I was bored I would be at the card and it was good staging in terms of putting the women where they were, and it was enough matches apart from the men. Mm-hmm. So I'll give them credit for the whole thing. But we don't have time to talk about it match by match. I was told that the matches for Mania are going to be Becky and Shayna and Drew and Brock and Fiend and Roman, and they were the three I was told. But in terms of the way that the Rumble was booked, the whole Rumble was exactly the same. And the only thing that were in discussions is how we swap the winners over, and they did on the last day. But because Charlotte was runner-up and Drew was runner-up, they needed to do nothing but reverse how they went out. And you could sort of tell that because Drew's the finish on the Drew Roman thing, it wasn't Shawn Michaels and Taker in 2007. It wasn't like he almost went out here and he almost went out here. They didn't have like 10 minutes
because they do that too much. So this was a refreshing.
Yeah. This was like I imagine would have been you spear me and throw me out, got turned into you kick me and throw me out. And Charlotte and Baszler had this weird crucifix thing, which they actually had to try twice because they botched it the first time. And yeah, that was it. It was a real easy switch. It was like all the other 28 people, which probably helped it not get out, by the way. All the other 28 people didn't have to know about about what happened with the last two. Only the last two needed to know about the last two, and then they did what they did. So
it's very interesting, and I want to tell the audience, when you're getting information from an inside source, I'm sure 90% of the people think Drew's telling you something, and I'm here to tell them. It is the funniest thing in the world because his other source knows more than Drew ever knows, but well before, which is ridiculous. Drew will be involved in something. Billy's other source will tell Billy what Drew is involved in, and then Drew goes, I didn't know I was going to be involved in it. And then it happened. It's ridiculous.
I told Drew 2 weeks ago that the WWE were initially I told him about that they were moving to BT from Sky, and he couldn't believe it because Sky is something that is like in our blood in terms of he watches Scottish football and I watch English football, and Sky have all of it, and we all know what Sky is. And since he's been working out of the country, he probably doesn't even know what BT Sports is because it's a new channel. And he was shocked that Sky had lost the wrestling that they've carried since 1989. And then I told him that there was a shared deal with terrestrial television. It was my story, actually, broken on the dirty sheets that I found out from a contact. It was my brother actually works at MTV. So this actually wasn't from a source or from anybody in the WWE. It's from my own brother who works at MTV and said, and who are part of involved with Channel 5 and said, yeah, we're buying WWE. And he had all the guys in the office and everything coming in, shooting the commercials. And they said that the second running, so basically Raw is the only exclusivity that BT have because WWE wanted a different kind of rights deal, was to run first run programming. After that, all the repeats and highlights can air on Channel 5, which is a terrestrial channel. And he was shocked. He was going, like, are you sure? Like, this is like how can wrestling be back on a terrestrial channel? They just done a deal with BT. I was like, because it's not that kind of deal. They've signed, the WWE have only given them exclusivity on first run programming, the repeats and everything. And I believe you have that kind of deal in America as well, because I see things like, I can't remember that sitcom, the one I talked to you about. That's always
King
on.
of Queens.
No. That's not
not
older.
that one. I thought that's what you were.
No, the one that's big over there now.
Modern Family.
That's it. Modern Family. Modern Family has two channels, right? It has a channel that has loads of repeats.
It's on USA actually, and it's on ABC.
Yeah, and I always you were actually. And this is ironic because you were telling me that happens over there, and we didn't have that over here. Well, WWE have done that over here, and it's the first of the kind that I can really remember where they've done a deal with BT, and they're going to get Raw and SmackDown live, and then after that, the highlights and all those other little shit shows that used to be called Livewire and Mania and things like that are going to air on Channel 5, and I also think there may be a repeat of Raw. So I told him this that you're now going to be on Channel 5, so there's no need now for people to pay to watch you. You're now accessible to the entire country, and he was really surprised. But he works there, and he's going to be the one who's on TV with more people than ever in his own country, seeing his face every week. And I needed to say that to him. So they don't know anything. People are very, and I sometimes I think that, like, in terms of when we speak, or, you know, in terms of when you had that run-in with Derek and whatnot over the tickets, whereas I think that when I report something, Drew may be worried that he thinks that, oh, I talked to this guy and he's reporting news and they're automatically going to think it's going to come from me or whatever. And I always just think, or even other people think it's come from him. And I always just have to always reiterate how little they actually know. And I think obviously the company would know as well. The company know that they don't tell them anything. And I think that all stemmed from, you know, when Meltzer was becoming a big deal or whatever. It was Bret Hart and people like that who were giving him the news, because they were doing it in exchange for better write-ups.
You know,
and
we should let everybody know that obviously Billy's source is Vince McMahon. I mean, this is obvious. He's the only one who knows these things ahead of time, right?
Oh, can you imagine?
Vince telling you, hey, let's make some money, kid. Put all this on everything here. I'll fucking switch it, and it'll be 40-1 just so we get paid one day.
It's funny because now he could probably book the XFL too, and that will really be something that you can bet on for probably as much as you want as well, like higher stakes, because it's going to be classified as a sport.
Oh my god!
But I mean, they could book that. But I mean, in regards to, I forgot what I was talking about in terms of this Rumble.
About you getting the sources. That's what you were talking about originally here. About that, you got to reiterate that it's not him that's giving you anything, because obviously they don't get any fucking information. So it can't.
No, and so there's no. So that was it. There was no information. So in terms of these Rumbles getting switched, I only found out from somebody else, because Drew was off the radar completely, and that was when I first got my feeling. So I texted this girl that we both know and said, I think Drew's winning the Rumble. And I showed you the message.
Yeah.
And this was a mutual friend of ours. And she was like going, oh my God, why do you think that? And then I started explaining in terms of, like, you know, completely off the radar today. Because I mean, like, my texts, as I said, they're wrestling related. How you doing? Like, what's you know, discussing a few like ideas back and forth here and there. What do you think of my match?
Yeah. That
kind of stuff. Because I think you earn that trust through, like, not having dickhead opinions. And I'm doing a podcast as well, but I mean, I've heard other people's podcasts and I wouldn't trust their opinion for shit. So it's just generally that kind of stuff. It's nothing like news related or whatever. I mean, obviously we talked about the last situation and how.
Oh, we joked.
I mean, that's look.
You were very serious. I joked about it. Thank you.
I think the only information that I've ever actually even remotely received from Drew was the fact that the wrestlers were told. There was a meeting where wrestlers who were told that if anybody knew him or was friends of him, to keep checking on him.
Oh, I thought you said get an AIDS test.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, that's not even really news, is it? That's kind of a responsible thing for the company to do.
Obviously, yeah, because I can't imagine. Where this is going to end up.
You know, the same company where, like, Triple H like buries Paige in a fucking press conference.
But that, you know, but what she got caught doing was pretty normal.
Yeah,
well, except for being a blue with a black guy.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Like, she was. She was probably fucking celebrating, like, when that came out.
Oh God, she'd be doing cartwheels.
Imagine it, like, took so much of the fucking heat off her. But then I just think she's just more fun. It's just more fun to get it to go back around to her anyway.
Oh yeah, by far.
It's almost it's because of that self-importance that she has.
Oh yeah, if you put yourself on a pedestal, you're looking to get knocked off real.
And I always feel that way about her, and that she does.
You know, if Drake Maverick was the one in the videotape getting blown by a guy, I think it would blow over, so to speak. And I don't think it'd be a big deal. When it's Lars, who's like some monster and killing people, and angry, and getting in trouble for yelling faggot on Twitter, that doesn't help. It doesn't help him at all. And I think that's what everyone goes, Oh, no wonder he was yelling that. Self-hating. So that's what I think that comes from. So do we want to wrap this up? We've done much longer than, of course, we expected, like usual.
Yeah, I mean, in summary, I think they're in a good pattern, and it isn't just down to me getting a main event I want to see. I think the card is shaping up pretty well. I mean, that Edge and Orton match is going to be hot.
Yep.
And then obviously you have Roman and Fiend on the other side, which I never had a problem with, other than the fact it was closing, and I really don't think it is now. I'm certain.
I'm certain too. I can't imagine.
You can bet on this, Cav. Like what?
You know what? I am going to be betting because I'm getting my VPN so I can bet in England.
No, but you can bet now. Like there's a market they released yesterday saying what will be the main event.
Oh yeah, I saw you had money on winners, so that's why I grabbed this VPN now, because I am sure those odds are going to change. So I'm going to jump on it right now and get on it. So,
but yeah. I mean, even aside from that, I think Shayna and Becky is a match that will be fine once they get going with it. I'm hearing that Charlotte's going to face Rhea Ripley,
which is odd.
But I mean,
for who they're wrestling each other, that's perfect because they're both like the same height, size, all that kind of stuff. But I don't get the whole NXT title thing.
But I like the shape that they've gone back to in terms of we have a big title match, we have two big title matches, and then we have the non-title main event, right? And that's always worked better with Mania, where it's the non-title main event on Raw. So the number 2 match on Raw is Orton versus Edge.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so they've gone back to the whole thing where it's like we're going to have a 1, 2, and 3 from Raw and a 1, 2, 3 in SmackDown. It doesn't feel so much like let's get everybody on the fucking show. It's going to be like here's your number 1 and here's your number 1, 2, 3, and 4. A number 1 and 2 from Raw and a number 1 and 2 from SmackDown. And I will be really interested to see what the number 2 match on SmackDown is, or the non-title main event match. I feel like it's going to involve Cena. So it's going to be interesting and then obviously then you have the 3 women's matches aside from that. Secondary titles are going to pad out the card as well as is the Battle Royal. But I don't think it's going to be so much of the whole fatal 4-way triple threat kind of thing, which gets boring.
I heard that SmackDown was going to copy an old Raw because of Edge being back. They were going to have a live sex show with Otis and Mandy on SmackDown.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
That might be the greatest thing ever.
I think the bar was raised with her Rumble outfit as well.
Yes,
I mean
it was.
There was a lot of people talking about that.
It was a great outfit. Great outfit. All right, let's seal this up. Put a bow on it, Billy, and let's get out of here.
Go on. Do you want me to do it?
I'll close it. Why not? You could find all of Billy's things at, dirtysheets.net. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, that links to Patreon, yeah.
Okay, very good. You can get all Billy's things there. You can find out, and you can get some insider info from people who aren't wrestlers who know more than the wrestlers. You can find all my nonsense at Lingus Mafia on Twitter, and my show, of course, is called Lingus Mafia, and that's Mr. Cav.
And the thing is, what would be really good? Actually, we've done a show and we've talked a lot about insider info and where it comes from, where it doesn't come from. There was some great insider info in our group chat that actually cannot be said on this show.
Mm-hmm.
But did you actually end up listening to those voice
notes?
Of
course. I listened to everything.
That's fucking crazy, isn't it?
It was pretty good. I mean, we shouldn't discuss it here because if people pull their hair out because they'll never know what the fuck we're talking about.
Actually, I tell you what, I will actually drop one of those stories on Patreon because I feel like it's going to be I think it'll be I think the one where the one about Brock wanting something to happen on I think that's a good one.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's a good reason to go to his Patreon and sign up and get this news because he got a link. He's got a link to let you know certain things that are being said backstage, and it's very interesting. So go to his Patreon and check it out. For Mr. Billy Body, I've been and always will be Cav Manning, and we'll see you next week.